Welcome back to part two. Today we're looking at freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and looking at the pros and cons, trying to find a whole holistic view around the topic. And right now we're going to focus on the media and what role that has as well. Vikas, I'm turning to you. Obviously you've written in local media as well. As a journalist, if you'd like to call yourself that, as a writer, surely you have a huge responsibility regarding freedom of speech.
Absolutely correct. And again, it's a right, in a sense that I have to write, with a W this time, but again with responsibility. Mentioned earlier on about the Press Complaints Commission, there is a code of conduct that newspapers and everyone in the media has to follow in order to not overstep the mark. Freedom of information, everyone has the right to know, the public has a right to know,
right.
And it's a responsibility of people in the media to spread that knowledge and information.
But what do they have the right to know? I mean, there's people's own privacy, for example, that sometimes they feel their privacy is being intruded into. So where do the boundaries lie? What information is sort of counts within that?
There are certain contexts that you're not allowed to step into. An example being, for example, taking photographs of somebody in the privacy of their own home without their consent, as an example.
I mean, we hear so much about celebrity complaining about that their freedom of the privacy is being invaded into.
The privacy point is an interesting one, because what we have here, and it's something we've not touched upon yet, is that there's consistently, with any form of political, legal, philosophical thought, what we're dealing with here is a conflict of interests, values, and principles. You've got things flying around all over the place. You've got privacy rights, you've got truth, you've got free expression, you've got equality, non-discrimination. You've got all these things that we all like and that we all want lots of. But how do we reconcile them when they come into conflict with each other? So, for example, if my particular politician was committing adultery, let's say, I think I would be entitled to know, even though it might breach his privacy rights, because it's important that I have a decision about who's going to be running my life, that I know their personality. Whereas if my next door neighbour is committing adultery, do I necessarily have a right to it? Well, probably not. So what we have here is a situation where we've got various different things that we like, and we're trying to balance them and reconcile them.
I was just going to pick up on that point. It's been mentioned earlier in the programme about free speech in the media generally, as we're discussing right now. And we mentioned earlier on that what is the role of, or why is free speech valued? It's to spread information, it's to spread knowledge. Nowadays, what we see is through the media that what should be freedom of speech to educate is really freedom of speech to entertain and to slander, if anything. Why? Because the way that the media has become now, it's all about ratings. It's about which newspaper can be the most successful, which TV channel is the most viewed. It's very much competition-based. And in order to grab attention, and it's really freedom of speech to grab attention, that's what it's really become.
But reveal some, you've got experience within the BBC. I mean, you don't write stories just for entertainment, you do it to educate, don't you, surely? There's, when we just mentioned this code of conduct and there's certain rules to stop that from happening.
Well, the media works, with one principle. Good news is no news.
Right, okay.
So you need bad news in order to entertain people and to make them watch something.
Okay.
And in this respect, whatever we see, it's not an objective thing. It is picked up for the ratings. It's picked up for the commercials, for the price of commercials and so forth. And so we can't say that it is absolutely. For example, again, look at what's happening in Russia now. Russian television was once, Soviet television. Everything was very good there, very nice, and so forth. Just very rosy. Now everything is absolutely night black. You can't find the proper normal program just to sit and be quiet and watch and to pick something. You're always being being frightened with something. Why? Well, one thing is somebody sitting there, he wants to do this and wants to spoil the society and wants to make it bad. Well, I'm not into this, I'm not buying into this. But I know that the kind of, commercially driven television is that by definition at the end. If there is nothing to stop it, and here we have some safeguards, of course, in Britain.
So, I mean, you're talking about television. Obviously, it's driven by audience ratings as well.
No,
potentially.
Yes.
It's about getting people to watch the shows. I mean, we've got people here. I just want to move to the audience now to get their view. Do you feel that you're being force-fed information? Maybe that's what they're saying here, that you're being given these things to actually listen to and pick up on. To see if you'd like to just.
I would think so, because I'll give my own example. I read the newspapers daily, and I watch BBC. In the newspapers, what I've seen is when you read it, you sometimes feel that there's kind of a bias. For example, you will see news, for example, 40 people will die in Russia, it will not be reported.
Right, okay.
But some 70-year-old guy will marry a 12-year-old girl in Morocco, it will be like the second page news.
Right, okay.
Why is that? Is there a plan to actually malign Islam or Muslims? And good news, for example, if there is the largest Muslim gathering in UK, which is the Jalsa Salana of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, it's never on television or on in the newspapers. Why is that? And then you start questioning, is this the media that is driving it, or the people want that kind of news?
Yeah,
Okay,
coming on to that point.
let me just take a few more
points
points from the audience first, and then we'll come back to you. I mean, you've got something you'd like to add to that?